Welcome to the Metacast. We have another guest. Very exciting to have David Pereira with us, recent author. I'm
Woo!
assuming you've already, everybody's already bought the book. So everybody's very excited to hear from David. I'm excited to hear from David because I am the lone person on this podcast that hasn't published a book yet. I am working on it. So I'm excited to learn from David, not only about writing a book, but also everything that he has it shaped around product and bullshit product management. I'm excited to hear about that. So first things first, David, tell us a little bit about yourself.
Sure. So thanks for getting me here. It's a pleasure. A little bit about myself. I'm a very curious person. I want to learn as much as possible, and I'm optimistic. So I always believe we can do something better and help. So sometimes I may come across as a thought provoker, challenger, and so on, but I just imagine a world where we can have more fun while work and create more value. So I keep challenging things. So a little bit of my story. I'm from Brazil. I started working there as software engineer, moved to product after 5 years, and then moved from Brazil to Germany. Have been doing different things here, from product manager to CEO and so on. So have been trying to create digital products over the last 15 years. Have succeeded sometimes, failed other times. It's okay. It's part of the game and always learning. So that's me.
Perfect. So you made the jump from engineering to product management. What caused that? Was that a choice you made, or did you get shoved into a role at your job? What's the story there?
So the story is always a bit funny because and the truth is I don't really have a career plan. I've never had in my life. I just keep working on what I like doing. I try learning something different here and there. I read books and so on. And I talk to loads of people. And how did I move from software engineering to product management is just another story like that. I wanted to improve my English. Can you believe? And I didn't have enough money to travel abroad. So I decided to attend to an immersion course. And then by the end of the course, we needed to show how we developed the language. And as a software engineer, I said, I'm going to present the thing I'm working on right now. So I took that system and I presented that. And then after the presentation, someone came to me, hey, I want to work with you. I said, okay, so let's have a chat about it. Turned out the guy was a CEO in Sao Paulo. I was from a small town back then. And he said, I would like you to join us as a product owner. I said, ooh, that sounds cool. Thanks for that. And he said, I really see you succeed in this role. I said, it sounds cool, but there's a little problem. And he said, what is the problem? I said, I have no idea what a product owner is. And then he looked at me, it doesn't matter. You're good with communication. You make complex things simple. If you keep doing that, you're going to succeed in the role. I said, if you say so, then it happens what happens all the time with me. I'm too curious. So I said, okay, let's just give it a try and see what happens. Then I went to all of these things of product management.
That is a good story. Yeah, it's amazing how when you put yourself out there and you just do your thing, good things happen. That's similar to how I met Bob. I got hired in as a Scrum Master release manager, and I remember when I got hired, I called my wife and said, "Hey, they hired me. Oh, well, what's the role? What'd you get?" And she said, "Have you ever done those things?" And I said, "No, but I'll figure it out." And that landed me in a role where I started working next to Bob. And then, long story short, here we are doing podcasts for, decades. But yeah, it is amazing how when you just are optimistic and put yourself out there, interesting and good things happen.
Yeah.
That
David, I want to challenge you a little bit in a loving way though. I think I think of you as a thought provoker, a pot stirrer, a devil's advocate, and and I think of you as being like curmudgeonly. And this is from your presence. Whenever I read something from you, I'm like, David is David is not happy, right? He's stirring the pot, and and I didn't get the optimistic part. So my comment is maybe let that optimist shine through. I thought you were too much of a pot stirrer. I didn't see the optimist.
Well, that's how I see things, right? So one of the things is I don't make up
reality. I look how it is. And I think it's very important to face reality as harsh as it can be. Where does the optimistic part come from? Whenever I see reality, I always think there is something we can do today for a better tomorrow. It doesn't matter
Yeah.
what is happening. Are we trapped in a feature factory? All right, I've been there several times. Are
Yep.
we trapped in a situation where stakeholders are
Yep.
defining all these things? That's okay. Let's just play the game now. And then I'm optimistic in this part. And what I do on LinkedIn, yes, I try provoking because I want people to reflect. I want people to think. And if you look through my posts, I'm always saying like, "Hey, this is what you could try doing. This is what is
Yep.
happening." I
Yep.
start provoking, but then I start giving some things, hoping that people are gonna act on that. But yeah, I stir the pot a little bit here, challenge there, and so on. But I try not just to shout, but to say maybe there's something we could do.
No, I think it's a really a plus thing. I think sometimes there's a balance between optimism and realism and suggestions
Hmm.
and then pot stirring. And sometimes people tune you out. You're becoming a thought leader in this space. You've become a thought leader. I know. How scary is that? So you're a thought leader. So it's like, how do you balance that so people don't tune you out, right? And that's what I was saying. I sometimes tune you out and then I have to, but I know you, then I come back and I'm like, oh, I understand where he's coming from.
Yeah, yeah, it's a balance. It's finding the balance, and sometimes I do cross the line a little bit. I know that, so
Yeah,
I start.
it's all good.
It's fine, right? It's like agile. So you try something, you learn, and then you see, oh, what did I learn from this? So I'm continuously doing something in this direction and seeing what resonates. But one of the things I'm trying out more recently and more often is about being vulnerable, saying, hey, maybe agile is actually not a problem. Maybe how we do it is a problem. For
Exactly.
example, I misunderstood agile in the beginning of my career. I thought it was the art of maximizing output. So I did more of that. And agile was not the problem. I was. So I learned
Yeah.
from that. So I think showing some of the real stories. The world's not perfect, but it's not blaming the others. Sometimes I am the one to blame. So let's share what
I,
I learned from that.
I love that. You raised your eyes when I said thought leader, or influencer. You made a face, but you are how why did you make the face? Do you see yourself that way? Are you being intentional?
It's something interesting because the reason I started writing, it came out of a pain.
Yep.
So it came like first there was a friend of mine who pushed me to write. He was saying, "Hey, you need to write something," and so on. I wrote something 2017, and then it took me 2 years to write something else. And then I was, all right. What do I do right now? Should I continue to write? What was the pain? COVID-19. COVID-19 came, and my wife was stuck in Russia. She couldn't come back, and then I couldn't see her, and I didn't know what would happen. I said, I don't do anything, I go into depression here. And then I started sharing, and the and I shared actually my mistakes. I just created a mind map with every place I worked and everything that I screwed up, and said, let's share. And when you say that I'm becoming a thought leader, I, it's just my story there. I just shared that and spoke to people and so on, and then it created resonance with loads of people.
Yep.
But it's a bit scary, so I need to be more careful with my words, not to mislead people. So I want to lead them in a good direction. So it's a considerable responsibility, which started out of just blogging.
I want to circle back to the king of curmudgeon, assuming somebody else is a curmudgeon. So let's just,
What?
that's a little bit of the pot calling the kettle black there.
What?
So I
What?
really,
I was showing vulnerability. No, I wasn't. No. All right. All right.
I enjoyed that moment, and I've been sitting here relishing the opportunity to call that out for the past 5 minutes. It's been very difficult to hold that back, but I'm very happy to be able to have called that out. Okay, so we learned about how David started writing. You mentioned you started writing in 2017, then blogging during COVID-19. What pushed you over the edge to be like, daggone it, I am gonna do the impossible and I'm going to write a book? how did that, was that another one of those, like, you just got frustrated, you needed to do something about it? What's the driver?
So the book was something unplanned. That's what happened. I didn't intend actually, but I continues blogging. I like writing. I realized after COVID-19 that I really enjoy writing. Helps me with many things. One, it helps me reflect, help me look at the same story from different angles and get the lessons from that. And I realized that more people benefit from this. They wrote me message saying, "Hey, I learned this, I start trying this in my job," and that excited me and so on. And one thing that I realized was people were feeling powerless. They would say, "I read this book here, I like the book, but I have no idea how to implement, because all the concepts I'm seeing here, they relate to Netflix, Google, and I'm just a normal PM. I don't know where to start. I'm working in a company that has no idea how to do that, and they don't have all of these resources available. They don't have these funds and all of this thing, and I just don't see where to start." And one thing that I realized, I'm also normal. I didn't have the chance of working for any of these big tech companies. And I work for the companies no one knows. I work for the normal companies as most of the PMs do. I said, maybe I could share stories that most people would understand, that would relate to them. And I said, instead of telling them what they should be doing, I will say what I did wrong. So that's why I called Untrapping Product Teams. And I said, what if we start something like a journey where I share the traps I have faced over my life and I have seen across companies? And then we say, first, let's face reality. Then I help them improve it. And then later, I say, how can we remain untrapped? And I was blogging on these things so for a while. And then I started giving talks called Untrapping Product Teams. And in one of the talks that happened in person, that was in Munich actually, I gave the talk. There were around 60, 70 people there. And the energy was very powerful. I've never felt like that. These people looking there full of energy and so on, and laughed because I made some jokes there and so on. Then I finished the talk. I go out of the stage. There's a line of 10 people waiting to talk to me. I said, what's happening here? And then out of these 10 people, 7 asked me, when is the book out? And I said, what book are you talking about? And then someone told me the following: David, you have something to say that people need to listen, and you know how to say in a way they are going to listen. Get it out. And that touched me. That was Thursday. On Sunday that week, after that week, I started writing the book.
I love that story. I love that the inspiration. I align with you, David. I think for me, I see what's the genesis for most of my work is not trying to share some perfect, but it's a problem that I see. So the product owner book started that way. The problem was there wasn't a lot of guidance for product ownership when I wrote the original book. There was a lot of people struggling with what it is, uh, and then getting feedback from other folks can be very motivational to me. But I found that writing a book was really hard, so I needed to have some motivation, some incentive, inside incentive to do it, to see it through, and that was a key for me.
It's true. Yeah, I read your book. It was the very first book I read about product ownership. And the reason I read it, it's because I didn't know what a product owner was. I started
Exactly.
working with that, and actually I realized something was wrong because I was doing loads of backlog management, stakeholder management, but
Yep.
I couldn't see how that was driving value. And back then I understood value as more features. That was on me,
Yep.
not on anybody else. I just misunderstood and I kept doing more of that. So writing the book was, as you said, getting resonance, learning from others. And I was afraid that I was unable to write a book because blogging is very different than writing a book.
Yep.
Blogging may help me sharpen my thoughts and so on, but writing a book is something that needs to talk from end to end. You need to have a red line there and so on. So I opened up. I got beta readers from the beginning. So I was doing that uh, like with Agile. It was iterations and iterations and iterations until the moment I got the book published. there were 5,000 feedbacks throughout the book. So there were several iterations of that. Starting in the chapter, I started writing the book from the middle, and then I published that somewhere, and I wanted to see how people would understand. And you guess what happened? They didn't get the message I wanted to convey. I had to learn and then to adapt. So it was considerable amount of work, but fun. Something I would do it all over again.
I want to like complete the circle here. So I started writing a book a handful of months ago, and I started reaching out to people that had recently published or had published just to get their approach. David was one of the guys I reached out to, and he's like, listen, you need to read this book. And he shared it with me. I bought it right away. And I know I thanked you in chat, but I do want to thank you in person, because this, as a product person, this book speaks to me, and it really has helped me create the focus that's needed. And it does a really good job for any product person of treating a book like a product, just like David said, where you get the feedback quickly and you iterate and do all that stuff. So, uh, just as Bob's book has helped David, David has helped me create my book. So, just very excited to be a part of this whole circle here. So, okay, we talked about the creation of the book. Let's get into the meat of the book and product management and um, untrapping them. I That's a fantastic image, because there are so many teams that are trapped by just struggles and failures by leadership. And oftentimes, actually, the biggest issue that I see in my travels is nobody's actually doing product. Product has to happen, and there's nobody actually doing the things that you and I would expect to see happening within a product organization. What are some of the biggest hurdles that you see that you try and attack with your book?
It's one thing that I noticed for some time. It's very easy to get in a situation that we start talking about work, and then we start talking how we're going to do the work, which framework are we going to use, what is the best way of testing our ideas. And then we talk about work, and we keep talking about work. Then I ask a question, who is doing the work? And then I hear crickets. And that's what got to my nerves. And I said, we need to change this. We need to stop talking about the work and start doing the work. And I said, first, let's see what is happening. We talk here about COVID-19, but the truth is, when I started my journey talking about the traps, I, I was making jokes about my role as a product manager. People would ask me, what do you do? I would say, actually, they say I'm a product manager, but I am a meeting manager, because I would stay all day long in meetings and so on and so on. But I realized actually I was the one to blame, because I said yes to almost all meetings that I would get. I didn't challenge how the meeting would collaborate to the goals. But if I look before COVID, there were limited meeting rooms, and each meeting room had limited space. So we still had to think a little bit. And what happens now? Unlimited meeting rooms with unlimited seats. As a result, more meetings with more people. And now we are facing a situation which I call as the meeting marathon. So we become victim of meetings, and we are always busy. So this is one of the traps that we need to break free from. How do we regain energy? How do we get to that? And we need to develop a bias toward action. And by this, it's like, instead of telling people what they should be doing and trying to lecture, what is something we can do today to create some evidence, and then we can create insights and learn? If we go back to the book, I got inspired by writing the book. But did people want the book from me? How would I learn that? You know what I did? That Sunday, I said that I start writing the book. Yes, I wrote a page there called Untrapping Product Teams. And a few sentences, I went to LinkedIn and I said, I'm about to write a book. And I wanted to test resonance. So that is a way of testing if there is a market for that or not. And then after that, I scaled something. Because what I see happening in the product world is we make too many decisions upfront. We want to invest here, so we're going to invest 3 months, and then we hope for the best, kind of. And I say, hey, let's make incremental investments that create evidence, and we decide based on the evidence if we want to invest further or not. So these are kind of things that I help battle with my book, which is untrapping, breaking free from meeting marathons, from the bloated backlogs, also from the opinion-driven roadmap, and so on. So these are just a few examples.
The opinion. I'm laughing at the opinion-driven roadmap. Absolutely. Everyone has an opinion.
Yeah.
I agree.
All right, so something I've seen you post on LinkedIn and on your Substack and various channels where I follow you is talking about bullshit management, and that's been something that's resonated with me, because something that a similar term that I use is when I see teams and companies that don't really have a product presence, what I say is they're just building shit. And maybe it's good shit, maybe it's bad shit, but like we're just stuff's gonna get built. And whether it's good or bad, you don't always know. But engineering teams are going to build stuff. That's what they do. They engineer. And if you don't provide clear guidance on what the highest value items are, then stuff's going to get built, and maybe it will be good, maybe it won't. Is that similar to the approach that you're taking? Or when you talk about bullshit management, what does that mean to you?
It's in the same direction, I would say. Because what I see is, are you being the driver or the passenger? Because if you are the passenger, you just embark on a ride and you hope for the best. You don't know where the destination is, and you hope the driver is making the right decision. The issue is sometimes you don't even know who the driver is, and you don't even know if there's a driver. So the thing, what I say is, creating digital products is complex because almost everyone around you is going to push you in different directions. And if you let that happen, you don't even know where you're going. And then you end in a situation which I say you are doing anything but product management. And it's very easy to end up doing bullshit management. And what I say is like bullshit management is an art. It's the art of spending time doing things that create no value but drain your energy. And the more bullshit you handle, the less value you create. And examples of bullshit, what I say is you have the attitude of gathering requirements. You go and you try understanding what are the wants of stakeholders, forgetting to understand the needs of customers. So you don't even care about this part. You start developing things based on opinions. And I don't say that opinions are bad, but you should be mindful about the investment you're doing. You should invest on testing if the opinion will survive contact with reality, as an example. And then there's another thing that happens, what I call as bullshit, is the consensus driven decision. So you get in a room, imagine the UX designer talked to several customers, understood several things, and present something there. And then everyone start challenging the design, trying to weigh in. Then you end up in a situation that you have the most horrible decision that was not even on the table. You just created that out of a discussion based on consensus because everyone had to weigh in. And then I say, like, actually, evidence and expertise should trump opinions. And these are the kind of things that I say that is bullshit because it derails us. We end discussing too much, we end derailing and going to things that they don't contribute to create value. We just get distracted from it.
I mean, as you were talking, David, I was thinking of just solid leadership. I'm not agreeing or disagreeing. I'm just, as you were talking, I was like, just we need solid drivers or solid leadership.
Yeah.
Someone to have a vision, someone to make someone to make decisions, someone to drive work as opposed to driving words or whatever. Is
Yes.
that am I catching? I mean, and it's rare, so that's why it's rare. But it just sounds to me like leadership or product-led leadership.
Yeah, and this is something that I have been wondering. It's easy to be in a situation that if you ask, where do we want to be? And you ask around the company, everyone is going to give a different answer. So then, of course, that's the recipe for confusion. And then if you ask, what is a good leader? Then you get also different answers.
Yeah.
And for me, a good leader is based on what Simon Sinek says. The role of a good leader is not to come up with all the great ideas, but to create a space where the great ideas can happen.
Yep.
And sometimes we're just not creating this space. And then as a leader now, I am trying to figure out how to create this space, how to provide enough guidance for people so they can come up with the ideas and transform ideas into reality. And the key thing is not all ideas are good. And how
Yep.
fast can you drop the bad ideas? So you need to provide some coaching and some orientation. But when we say about driving, some foundations need to be set, right? Because I always say there's a magic to drop bad ideas. You need to have some anchors. So,
Yep.
where's our vision? How does this contribute to the vision? Drop it. What is our strategy? How does this relate to the strategy? Doesn't, drop it. But sometimes we lack a vision, we lack strategy, we lack
Yep.
goals. Then we are just relying on luck, and relying on luck is generally not that good of a strategy.
One of the challenges that I've seen is similar to a situation. It sounds like you took the opportunity of becoming a product owner, having never done it before. I've seen so many people that get thrust into a position like that, and that's a difficult situation to be in. David's proven that with effort and energy and passion and optimism and everything to really be as good as he could become, that you can get there. But the support system for people that are put into these roles is unfortunately small, narrow, doesn't exist. David talked about the book that Bob wrote, and Bob wrote the product ownership book because there was nothing else there. So there was a vacuum. One of the challenges that I see is just the basic understanding of what a product manager does. And so many people in the product management role have echoed the same feeling that David did of my label says I'm a product manager, but I don't actually manage a product because there's no vision, there's no strategy, there's strong opinions. The founders are doing it. Uh, what what are some of the biggest challenges as you grew in your product management career and role that you had to battle through to become the product leader that you are now?
So there were a lot of learnings. So the very first thing is recognizing that alone I cannot do anything. Like my first strategy was trying to acquire as much knowledge as possible. So I would read all books that I could. I would apply to all courses that I could. I would do everything. I would go the extra mile in terms of acquiring knowledge. But then I didn't know how to deploy that into reality. And one of the things that like happened with me is I think it was 2014 or 15, Booking.com approached me. And then I went through the interview and I failed the technical interview. But I realized I failed after the third or fourth question. I couldn't answer any of the questions. And then I told the hiring manager, all right, I get it. I'm not going to move on. But maybe, just maybe, you could tell me what you would expect. I know I'm not going to move on. It's clearly I cannot answer this. And he looked at me and said, I realize you're good with delivery. That's what I saw in your first interviews. But now I'm looking at discovery and you lack skills of product discovery. And then he started telling me things there. You are unaware how to run product experiments. You are unaware how to define assumptions. You are unaware how to test them. You are unaware how to do this. I said, you're goddamn right. I don't know how to do any of that. And I said, what is the advice you would give someone like me who is eager to grow in a career? He said, you need a mentor. And the mentor is someone who has done what you want to do just a few years ago. And then you know what happened? If you ask for help and you genuinely want to improve, you get help. So I started asking people in my network. I would see someone is succeeding in product management in a startup and so on. Say, hey, can you mentor me? Can you help me become better at what I'm doing? And turn out that actually people want to do that. And you can be surprised that some people is going to do that even for free, and some people will charge, of course, for the time, but there are people who want just to help for the sake of helping. That happened with writing. Martin Dauman helped me with writing. It happened with the book. Many people helped me with the book. So I always try to find someone who is ahead of me and did something I want to do. And that's how I start evolving, because then I would share real case and the person would give me immediate feedback and say, hey, here, try this, try that, and so on. And it was like feeling really like a shortcut, but pointing where I would hit the wall and what to do differently and so on. Of course, I need to have the courage of trying out things differently, because things were not exactly as I would get advice from the mentor, but I would try and I would learn. So that's what helped me, like exposing, not being afraid of talking to people who I don't know. I just approached some people from my network and then I got help.
Fantastic. Bob, you've been taking a lot of notes there.
Oh no, I was just
What do you got?
I it was actually a note for a blog. So I like David, I like to write and I find it's cathartic. So I wrote down an idea of what that and please don't charge me for this, both of you. I hope it's free. But I said, don't let your role define you. Uh, and I think a lot of people, meaning if I'm a scrum master, it defines who I am. And what I heard from David is he did not let the role define him. He brought himself to the role and defined it. And I thought that was a really powerful juxtaposition. Uh, and I won't actually get AI to write it, Josh. I'll write it myself. So, but
You know,
that's what I was writing down.
AI
A
is a
tool.
editor is
It's
fantastic.
I
It's a
I know
tool. It can do some very great things, Bob.
I know.
So, and listen, let's not forget that phone conversation you and I had a couple weeks ago, where you're like, "I used this AI tool and it created this thing and it was amazing." I've been spouting off about the power of AI and how it's supported me in my writing. I am not as naturally gifted writer as the two of you, but I have thoughts and ideas, and there are tools that help me create and transform those thoughts and ideas into something that I'm proud of. And that's where AI helps me, and why Bob likes to give me a hard time, because I like to ask for help and I like to get help, like David. So David just talked about getting help. I am getting help as well. There are skills that I've gotta grow, and there's some tools out there that are helping me. Aside from wonderful people like David, that again, I reached out to David out of nowhere, just as he talked like, "Hey, would you like to be on our podcast?" Sure, I'd like it. "Hey, I'm starting to write a book. What did you do?" "Well, here's what I did. Here's this book. It really helped me. You should give it a shot." So again, further evidence of when you ask, people are genuinely good and they just want to help and give stories and experience and everything. So if you're unsure of where to go, David is a fantastic example of just ask for help. It's there. People will give it. It is everywhere. So want to highlight that for anybody that feels like they're stuck in a role. Listen to what Bob just said. You can define your role. You can reshape it, especially if you're in a product role. We've talked a couple times in the past half hour or so about people being in product management roles, but feeling like they're not actually having the opportunity to do the job. Well, you can take the opportunity, you can grab the reins, you can redefine what that role is. You might have to put a little time, effort, and energy in to learn and study, just as David has, but then you can reshape your reality. So pick up David's book. David's book has everything you need to untrap yourself as a product manager and become the product leader that you aspire to be. So the opportunity is there. You just have to grab it and make it happen. And David just talked through 3 or 4 different ways how he made that happen. So, David, uh, any last thoughts for product leaders that are out there that have heard us talk for almost 40 minutes now? And you say, "Hey, listen, if you're stuck, if you need this, this is what my book can help you do," or anything like that.
Yeah. Well, my book will help you with perspectives. I don't give you any success recipe because I don't have it. But my book will share different ways of trying out things. For example, if you say, I have no idea how to communicate with stakeholders, the book is going to give you ideas on how you can, instead of manage your stakeholders, to build alignment with them. You may struggle, for example, to align with your teams. How do I set my teams? The book will give you perspective. How do you measure results? You talk a lot about value. What the heck is that? So I'm not only talking about what value is, but how do you start a discovery journey so you take the steering wheel, and as a driver, you decide when to drive where and for how long. Because as a driver, you need to figure out what makes sense. Because we're talking a lot here about product leaders, product managers, what should I do, and so on. But if you step back a little bit, your role is to maximize value for the customer and business. That's it. And then you can ask, what is something I could do to get closer to that? And the question is not how can I do that with Scrum, or how can I do that with Kanban, or how can I do that with Safe, or whatever framework you use. The question is very simple. What can I do today to create value for customer and business? That's the question you need to get bothered with. And then you try applying. The book will give you many perspectives. And the book will share with you many stories where I screwed up. I'm not embarrassed because that's just part of the journey. I didn't get where I got by succeeding all the time. I got here because I exposed myself to many scenarios where I raised to the level of my incompetence. But I took the shot. That's what happened.
My name is Bob Galen, and I'm achieving my incompetence. So absolutely. I beat you to it, Josh. David, at some point,
Yeah.
I don't think we have the time for it, but I was going to add an exploration of some of Marty Kagan's work, particularly like empowered product teams, and I was going to pick your brain about that. So maybe that's another episode we could do sometime. I have some thoughts about that. I've never really seen them be successful, but not because product teams are bad. It's because organizations don't really support the notion of them so much. But that's my runway. So Josh, maybe we can tee that up for if we didn't totally burn him out this time, maybe we can have him back and talk about that in the future. What do you think?
I think it's
I think we can beg. We can
Yeah,
get David
yeah.
maybe, like, if we maybe send him something nice, I don't know.
That's
We can come up with something.
you
cool.
know
Cool.
it's something interesting. We were talking before here. It's like a 5:46 p.m. Germany. It's a Friday, and so on. But the thing is, I started the talk with one level of energy, and I end the talk with more energy than I started. So I just like this kind of conversations because I hope to help more people who are listening to us. So of course, I'm open for another.
Cool. Very
Perfect.
cool.
Perfect.
Hey, Josh, is it time for a
Yes.
landing?
I think it's time for you to stick a fork in it.
All right. So from beautiful downtown Cary, North Carolina,
And from beautiful downtown Fuquay-Varina, North Carolina,
And from beautiful Munich, Germany.
I'm Bob Galen.
I'm Josh Anderson.
And I'm David Pereira.
All right, shake
And bake.
and bake.
Take care,
All
y'all.
right.
Yeah.